The sun beat down like a hammer on the dusty streets of Willow Creek when Gabriel Zimmerman rode in, his eyes as cold and vacant as a winter morning. It was the summer of 1876, and the tiny Montana settlement was still reeling from the news of Custer's defeat at Little Bighorn just 1 month prior. But Gabriel wasn't thinking about wars or politics. His mind was occupied with ghosts of his own making, memories that followed him like shadows no matter how far he rode. Bethany Valentine watched the stranger from behind the slightly warped glass of her general store window. She'd seen plenty of his kind before, hard men with harder expressions who brought nothing but trouble. She pulled her shawl tighter around her shoulders despite the heat, suddenly feeling the weight of running the store alone since her father's passing last winter. Gabriel dismounted with the fluid grace of a man who'd spent most of his life in the saddle. His spurs jangled softly as he tied his buckskin gelding to the hitching post. The horse, like its rider, appeared trail-worn but resilient. He patted the animal's neck before turning toward the general store, his face betraying nothing of his intentions. Inside, Bethany straightened her spine and smoothed her apron. At 26, she'd learned that showing weakness to strange men was never wise. The bell above the door chimed as he entered, filling the doorway with his broad shoulders and tall frame. Dust from the trail clung to his dark coat, and his hat, pulled low, cast shadows across features that might have been handsome if not for the grim set of his mouth. "Afternoon," she greeted, her tone businesslike. "What can I help you with?" Gabriel's eyes, a startling blue against his sun-darkened skin, swept the store before settling on her. "Water for my horse. Supplies for myself. Maybe information. Water trough is out back. Supplies I can help with. Information depends on what you're asking." Bethany moved behind the counter, putting a solid barrier between herself and the stranger. "Fair enough." He removed his hat, revealing dark hair in need of a trim. "Need coffee, ammunition for a Winchester, some jerky if you've got it. Been riding 3 days straight." As Bethany gathered his supplies, she studied him from the corner of her eye. His hands, rough and calloused, moved with a deliberate precision that spoke of a man accustomed to violence. Yet there was something in the careful way he handled each item she placed before him, a gentleness that seemed at odds with his demeanor. "That'll be $2.35, she said after tallying his purchases. "As for information, I need to know what you're looking for before I decide whether I've got any to sell." Gabriel placed the money on the counter. "Looking for work, mainly. Cattle, horses, I'm good with both. Peterson's ranch might be hiring. 5 miles north." She paused, then added, "though they're particular about who they take on." A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "Meaning they don't hire men who look like trouble?" Bethany met his gaze directly. "Can you blame them? Times being what they are." "No, madam, I cannot." He gathered his supplies. "Thank you for your help." As he turned to leave, Bethany found herself saying, "There's a room available at Mrs. Wilson's boarding house if you need a place to stay. Tell her I sent you." Gabriel nodded once, then disappeared through the door, leaving behind only the lingering scent of leather and trail dust. Bethany released a breath she hadn't realized she was holding, unsure why she'd offered even that small kindness to a man who radiated danger like heat from a stove. The following morning found Gabriel at Peterson's ranch, where the foreman, a grizzled man named Hank Dawson, eyed him suspiciously. "You've got the look of a gunman, not a cowhand," Dawson remarked, leaning against the corral fence. Gabriel didn't bother denying it. "Been both in my time. But I'm looking for honest work now." "Why here? Plenty of ranches between here and wherever you came from. Heard Peterson pays fair and runs a clean operation." It wasn't entirely a lie he had heard that, though it wasn't his primary reason for coming to Willow Creek. Dawson spat tobacco juice into the dirt. "We lost 2 men last month. Indians got 1, the other took a fall from a horse. I can offer $2 a day in meals. You prove useful, there might be more." "I'll take it." Gabriel extended his hand, and Dawson shook it firmly. "Bunkhouse is over there. We ride at dawn tomorrow." As Gabriel settled into the simple accommodations, he allowed himself a moment of relief. Work meant a reason to stay, and staying meant time to find what he'd come for. Or rather, who he'd come for. Over the next 2 weeks, Gabriel proved his worth at the Peterson ranch. He worked longer hours than required, spoke little, and demonstrated an exceptional way with even the most stubborn horses. The other hands gave him space, sensing something dangerous beneath his quiet exterior. His trips into town were infrequent but deliberate. Each visit included a stop at the general store, where Bethany Valentine continued to regard him with a mixture of wariness and growing curiosity. "You're still here," she observed one late afternoon as he purchased tobacco and more ammunition. "Work suits me," he replied. "And you? Storekeeping suit you?" Bethany hesitated before answering. "It wasn't my choice, but my father left it to me when he died. No brothers to take it on. You run it well." The compliment seemed to surprise them both. "Thank you." She handed him his change. "The town's having a social on Saturday. Seems everyone's determined to have some normalcy despite everything that's happened this year." Gabriel pocketed the coins. "Don't imagine that includes drifters like me. It includes anyone who pays the $1 admission that goes to the church roof fund." A hint of challenge colored her voice. He tipped his hat. "I'll consider it, Miss Valentine." As he left, Bethany wondered at her impulse to invite him. Perhaps it was the fleeting moments when his guard dropped, moments when something raw and wounded flickered in his eyes before the coldness returned. Saturday evening arrived with the kind of perfect sunset that painted the Montana sky in hues of gold and crimson. The town hall had been transformed with lanterns and bunting, and a small band of local musicians tuned their instruments in the corner. Bethany wore her best dress, a deep green that brought out the amber flecks in her hazel eyes. Her auburn hair was pinned up, with a few tendrils left free to frame her face. She helped arrange refreshments, all the while telling herself she wasn't watching the door. The social was well underway when Gabriel arrived. He'd cleaned up, his dark hair still damp from washing, and had exchanged his trail clothes for a clean shirt and vest. He paid his $1 at the door and stood awkwardly at the periphery, clearly uncomfortable among the townspeople. Across the room, Bethany felt her heart quicken at the sight of him. There was something undeniably compelling about Gabriel Zimmerman, something that called to her despite all her instincts warning against it. "I see your stray dog showed up," Martha Wilson, the boarding house owner, whispered with a knowing smile. "He's not my anything," Bethany protested, but her blush betrayed her. "Well, you might want to rescue him before Sheriff Taylor starts asking too many questions. You know how he gets about newcomers." With a sigh, Bethany crossed the room. "Mr. Zimmerman, you came." Gabriel's expression softened slightly at her approach. "Miss Valentine, didn't want the church to miss out on $1 for its roof. Very charitable of you." She smiled. "Have you tried the punch?" Before he could answer, a commotion erupted near the entrance. A group of cowboys from a neighboring ranch had arrived, already rowdy from pre-social drinking at the saloon. Their leader, Silas Reed, was known for his quick temper and faster hands when it came to women. "Looks like trouble," Gabriel murmured, instinctively positioning himself between Bethany and the newcomers. "Silas Reed," she explained quietly, "fancies himself the cock of the walk around here. Best avoided when he's been drinking." Unfortunately, avoidance proved impossible when Reed spotted Bethany and made a beeline for her, shoving dancers aside as he crossed the floor. "Miss Valentine, pretty as ever." Reed's words slurred slightly. "Save a dance for me? I'm helping with refreshments tonight, Mr. Reed." "Not dancing." Reed's smile faltered. "That's so? Or just not dancing with me?" His gaze shifted to Gabriel. "Don't believe we've met, stranger." "No reason we should have," Gabriel replied evenly. "Silas Reed. My family owns the Crooked R." He extended his hand, a challenge in his bloodshot eyes. Gabriel reluctantly shook it. "Gabriel Zimmerman. Working at Peterson's." "Peterson's?" Reed laughed. "Old man's barely hanging on since the Indian troubles." "You picked the wrong outfit, friend." "I'm not your friend." Gabriel's tone remained calm, but something in it made Reed take a step back. The sheriff approached then, his hand resting casually on his gun belt. "Everything all right here?" "Just getting acquainted, Sheriff," Reed said, his smile not reaching his eyes. "No law against that, is there?" "No, but there's laws against disturbing the peace." The sheriff looked pointedly at Gabriel. "And I like to know who's in my town." "Just a cowhand passing through," Gabriel said. "That's so?" "Because you've got the look of a man who's hunting, not passing through." A tense silence fell between them until Bethany intervened. "Sheriff Taylor, Mrs. Wilson needs help with moving some tables. Would you mind?" The sheriff gave Gabriel one last measuring look before nodding to Bethany. Of course, but I'll be keeping an eye on things. As he walked away, Reed leaned in close to Gabriel. Word of advice, stranger. This town's got enough problems without whatever you're bringing. And Miss Valentine there? She's too good for the likes of you. With that parting shot, he rejoined his friends. I apologize for that. Bethany said once Reed was out of earshot. Small towns and their politics. No need to apologize. They're right to be wary. Gabriel's eyes scanned the room restlessly. Perhaps I should go. Or perhaps you could tell me what really brought you to Willow Creek, Bethany suggested, her voice low. Because Sheriff Taylor is right, you do have the look of a man who's hunting. Gabriel studied her face, seeing intelligence and determination there. Not here, he finally said. Tomorrow, after church. Meet me at the creek bend south of town. Bethany knew she should refuse. Meeting a mysterious stranger alone was exactly the sort of foolishness her father had warned against. Yet she found herself nodding. 4 o'clock. The remainder of the social passed in a blur of forced small talk and avoided glances. Gabriel left early, feeling the weight of too many suspicious eyes. As he walked back to the boarding house, he questioned the wisdom of agreeing to meet Bethany. Involving her in his business could only bring her trouble, but something about her steady gaze had compelled him to trust her. Sunday afternoon found Bethany changing out of her church clothes into a simpler dress, her mind racing with possibilities. Who was Gabriel Zimmerman really? What was he hunting? And why did she feel this inexplicable pull toward him? She told Mrs. Wilson she was going for a walk to clear her head, not entirely untrue, and set off toward the creek. The late summer heat had diminished the once rushing water to a gentle stream, but the cottonwoods along its banks provided welcome shade. Gabriel was already there when she arrived, seated on a fallen log, his hat beside him. He stood as she approached, and for a moment, they simply regarded each other in silence. I wasn't sure you'd come, he finally said. Neither was I. Bethany settled on the log, leaving space between them. But I'm tired of wondering. Gabriel nodded, then reached inside his vest and removed a folded, worn paper. He handed it to her without comment. Bethany unfolded it carefully. It was a wanted poster for a man named Victor Daniels, wanted for robbery and murder. The reward was substantial, $500. You're a bounty hunter, she said, looking up at him. Sometimes. This one's personal. Gabriel took the poster back. Daniels was part of a gang that raided my family's ranch in Colorado 3 years ago. Killed my father and younger brother. My mother died 6 months later. Doctor called it pneumonia, but it was really a broken heart. Bethany's breath caught. I'm sorry. I've tracked down 4 of the 5 men responsible. Daniels is the last. Gabriel's voice was flat, emotionless. Word is he's hiding out somewhere near here, possibly working at one of the ranches under a different name. And once you find him, I bring him in to face justice. Something in his tone suggested justice might come from the barrel of his gun rather than a courtroom. Is that why you're really working at Peterson's? To watch the trails, see who comes and goes. Gabriel nodded. Peterson's land borders 3 other ranches, good vantage point. Bethany was quiet for a moment, processing this information. Why tell me this? Because you asked. Because you saw through me. He met her gaze directly. And because I need help. Someone who knows the locals, who might have noticed a newcomer in the past year who keeps to himself, maybe has a scar along his jaw. You're asking me to help you find a killer. I'm asking you to help me find justice for my family. The coldness in his eyes wavered, revealing the pain beneath. I won't rest until it's done. Bethany studied him, seeing for the first time the true source of his detachment. It wasn't coldness at all, it was grief, carefully contained and channeled into purpose. You're hurting, she said softly. Gabriel stiffened. What? You rode in cold as stone, but you ain't fooling me. You're just hurting quiet. The words came unbidden, an observation too honest to hold back. For a moment, Gabriel looked as if she'd struck him. Then, almost imperceptibly, his shoulders sagged. Been a long time since anyone saw past the surface. I've had practice. My father was the same way after my mother died. Locked everything inside until it ate him alive. She reached out hesitantly and touched his hand. I'll help you find this man, but you have to promise me something. What's that? That when it's over, you'll let yourself feel again. Really feel, not just exist. Gabriel looked down at her hand on his, then back to her face. I'm not sure I remember how. Maybe I can help with that too. Bethany withdrew her hand, suddenly self-conscious. There's a man who started working at the Crooked R about 8 months ago. Keeps to himself, calls himself James Smith. I only know because he comes into the store occasionally for supplies. Never looks anyone in the eye. Gabriel straightened. Does he have a scar? I've never been close enough to tell. He always wears a beard, though it's patchy in places, like something's preventing it from growing evenly. Could be hiding a scar. Gabriel stood, energy suddenly radiating from him. When does he usually come in? First Monday of the month, early morning. Which would be tomorrow. I'll be there. He paused, looking down at her. Thank you, Bethany. It was the first time he'd used her given name, and the sound of it in his deep voice sent an unexpected warmth through her. Just be careful. If it is him, he's dangerous. So am I. The coldness was back in his eyes, but now she understood its source. As they walked back toward town, keeping a respectful distance apart to avoid gossip, Gabriel found himself fighting an unfamiliar urge to reach for Bethany's hand. There was something about her direct gaze and quiet strength that resonated with him, reminding him of what he'd been before grief and vengeance became his only companions. Monday morning arrived with a heavy mist that clung to the valley, obscuring the distant mountains and lending an ethereal quality to the town as it slowly awakened. Bethany opened the store earlier than usual, her nerves jangling with anticipation and worry. Gabriel had promised to arrive after Smith entered the store, giving Bethany time to confirm his identity if possible. Just after 7, the familiar figure of James Smith appeared through the mist. He tied his horse to the post and entered the store with the furtive air of a man accustomed to watching his back. Morning, Mr. Smith, Bethany greeted him, trying to keep her voice steady. The usual supplies today? Smith nodded, his eyes darting around the empty store. And some chewing tobacco, if you've got it. As she gathered his items, Bethany made a point of dropping a sack of flour near him. Oh, I'm so clumsy this morning. Would you mind helping me with that? Smith hesitated before bending to retrieve the sack. As he straightened, Bethany got her first clear look at his face without the shadow of his hat. There, partially hidden by his beard but still visible, was a jagged scar running along his jawline. Her sharp intake of breath must have alerted him because Smith's expression changed instantly from discomfort to suspicion. Something wrong, Miss Valentine? No, just. Thank you for your help. She took the flour from him, careful to maintain her composure. That'll be $1.15 for everything. As Smith reached for his money, the bell above the door chimed. Gabriel entered, and the atmosphere in the store instantly thickened with tension. Smith froze, his hand shifting from his coin pouch to his belt where a pistol was holstered. Zimmerman, he breathed, recognition flaring in his eyes. Hello, Daniels, Gabriel replied, his voice deadly calm. Been a long time. In a flash, Daniels drew his gun, but Gabriel was faster. A single shot rang out, causing Bethany to cry out in alarm. Daniels staggered back, clutching his shoulder where Gabriel's bullet had struck him. You're under arrest for the murders of Jacob and Ethan Zimmerman, Gabriel said, his gun steady on Daniels. Drop your weapon. Go to hell, Daniels snarled, raising his gun again despite his injury. Gabriel fired once more, this time hitting Daniels in the hand and sending his weapon clattering to the floor. Daniels howled in pain, collapsing to his knees. I could kill you right now, Gabriel said, approaching the wounded man. Part of me wants nothing more than to watch you die slow, the way my brother did. Bethany moved from behind the counter, her heart pounding. Gabriel, don't. But I made a promise, he continued, glancing briefly at her. To bring you in alive. To let justice take its course. The door burst open again as Sheriff Taylor and 2 deputies rushed in, drawn by the gunshots. What in God's name is going on here? The sheriff demanded. Sheriff, this man is Victor Daniels, Gabriel explained, keeping his gun trained on the wounded outlaw. He's wanted for murder in Colorado. I have the warrant and authority to apprehend him. Taylor looked skeptical until Gabriel produced papers from his coat. The sheriff examined them carefully before nodding to his deputies. Secure the prisoner. Get Doc Matthews to tend those wounds before we lock him up. As the deputies hauled Daniels to his feet, the outlaw spat at Gabriel. Should have killed me when you had the chance, Zimmerman. I'd have done the same to you. That's the difference between us, Gabriel replied. Always has been. Once Daniels had been removed, Sheriff Taylor turned to Gabriel. You should have come to me first. Would you have believed me? Or would you have warned him I was asking questions? The sheriff had the grace to look uncomfortable. I protect my town, and I protected my family. Or at least, I finally brought those responsible to justice. Taylor nodded reluctantly. I'll send a telegraph to confirm everything. If it checks out, you can collect your bounty and escort the prisoner back to Colorado. After the sheriff left, Bethany and Gabriel stood alone in the suddenly quiet store. The scent of gunpowder hung in the air, mingling with the store's usual aromas of coffee and leather. Are you all right? Gabriel asked, holstering his weapon. Bethany nodded, though her hands trembled slightly. It happened so fast. For a moment, I thought that I might kill him. Gabriel's expression was unreadable. I wanted to. Even now, part of me regrets not putting a bullet between his eyes. But you didn't. She moved closer to him. You chose justice over vengeance. Because of what you said. His voice softened. About feeling again after it was over. Their eyes met, and something shifted between them, a recognition of possibilities that hadn't existed before. What will you do now? Bethany asked. After you take him back to Colorado? Gabriel hadn't allowed himself to think beyond finding Daniels. His life had been defined by a single purpose for so long that the concept of a future beyond it seemed foreign. I don't know, he admitted. I've been chasing ghosts for 3 years. Perhaps it's time to chase something else. The boldness of her words surprised even Bethany, but she didn't retract them. A week passed before Gabriel returned from escorting Daniels to Colorado for trial. In his absence, Bethany found herself counting the days, wondering if he would return at all. Perhaps his quest completed, he would simply move on, seeking new horizons away from the memories Willow Creek now held. When he finally rode back into town, the coldness that had marked his arrival was gone. In its place was a quiet determination as he made his way directly to the general store. Bethany was helping a customer when he entered, and she nearly dropped the bolt of fabric she was measuring when she saw him. She finished the transaction with barely concealed impatience before turning to him. You came back, she said simply. I said I would. Gabriel removed his hat, a gesture of respect that didn't go unnoticed by the few customers still browsing. Daniels will hang for his crimes. It's over. And how do you feel? He considered her question carefully. Lighter. Like I've set down a burden I've been carrying too long. But also, uncertain. I've been defined by vengeance for so long. I'm not sure who I am without it. Maybe that's something you can discover here. Bethany's cheeks flushed at her own forwardness. That's what I'm hoping. Gabriel glanced around the store, then back to her. Peterson offered me a permanent position. Foreman, eventually, if I prove myself. I'm considering taking it. Bethany's heart quickened. That would mean staying in Willow Creek. Yes. He stepped closer. But I need a reason beyond just the work. And have you found one? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Instead of answering with words, Gabriel reached out and took her hand in his. The touch was gentle, tentative, the action of a man relearning how to connect with another person after years of isolation. I'd like to call on you properly, Miss Valentine. With your permission. The formality of the request, combined with the warmth in his eyes that had replaced the former coldness, brought a smile to Bethany's face. I'd like that very much, Mr. Zimmerman. In the months that followed, Willow Creek watched with interest as the cold-eyed stranger became an integral part of their community. Gabriel worked tirelessly at Peterson's ranch, gradually earning the respect of even his most skeptical neighbors. His expertise with horses proved invaluable, and by winter, he had introduced breeding practices that promised to strengthen the ranch's stock considerably. His courtship of Bethany Valentine proceeded with the same deliberate care he brought to everything. Sunday afternoon walks became a familiar sight to townspeople, as were his daily visits to the general store, ostensibly for supplies, but clearly for much more. For Bethany, watching Gabriel rediscover how to live rather than merely exist was like witnessing a transformation. The cold, hard shell he had worn as armor slowly gave way to reveal the man beneath, a man capable of laughter, tenderness, and eventually, love. By the following spring, no one in town was surprised when Gabriel proposed. The wedding took place in June, a simple affair in the newly repaired church. Mrs. Wilson cried openly, claiming credit for seeing the match before anyone else, while even Sheriff Taylor offered grudging congratulations. Gabriel used part of the bounty money to build an addition onto the store living quarters more spacious than the small rooms Bethany had occupied above the shop. Together, they expanded the business, with Gabriel handling supply runs to Helena while Bethany managed day-to-day operations. On their first anniversary, Gabriel presented Bethany with a journal he had kept during his years of hunting. "I want no secrets between us," he said as she opened it with reverent hands. "This was who I was. But you're the one who showed me who I could be again." Bethany, with tears in her eyes, placed her hand over his. "You rode in cold as stone that day, but I knew there was more beneath the surface. You just needed someone to see it." Gabriel pulled her into his arms, marveling at how this woman had broken through barriers he had thought impenetrable. "I was just hurting quiet," he acknowledged, echoing her words from long ago, "until you taught me how to heal out loud." As dusk settled over Willow Creek, painting the sky in hues of pink and gold, the couple stood on the porch of their home, watching as the first stars appeared. The wounds of the past would never fully disappear for either of them, but they had found in each other the strength to build something new from the ashes of what had been lost. And in the quiet moments between dusk and darkness, when the day's business was done and they were alone together, Gabriel would sometimes whisper against Bethany's hair, "Thank you for seeing me when I couldn't see myself." To which she would always reply, "Thank you for coming back to life, for choosing to stay." In a land as harsh and unforgiving as the American West in the late 1800s, such choices were never guaranteed. But Gabriel and Bethany Zimmerman had discovered that even the coldest stone could be warmed by the persistent flame of understanding and love, a truth that sustained them through all the years that followed, as their family grew and their roots in Willow Creek deepened with each passing season.